Hi, this is Andy Dolish, and this is One-on-One with ADC Partners.
Hi, this is Dave Almy of ADC Partners. When Andy Dolich shoots you a note and says, hey, let's do a podcast episode together, the only possible response is, when do we record and how long do you have? It's fair to say that Dolich is a legend in the sports business world. He's sat in the big chair for teams in 3 of the 4 major pro sports leagues. He's overseen both championship seasons and epic losing ones. He's worked for some of the greatest owners in sports and, well, other owners as well. In short, he's one of the guys who helped transform sports business from an almost quaint operation into the multi-billion-dollar economic behemoth that dominates the cultural landscape today. Best of all, Andy has opinions, and he is not afraid to share them. In this episode, he lays into the Oakland A's ownership, laments the impending demise of the Pac-12, and gets fired up about the fan-controlled football league, and much, much more. So buckle up, Buttercup. Here comes Andy Dolich. You were president of the Oakland A's for a considerable amount of time. And you, I think it's fair to say, sort of at the apogee of the A's experience with the whole Billy Ball piece and World Series appearances and wins. You know, Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, just said, look, the condition of the Coliseum is a serious problem. It's not news. It's not a major league quality facility at this point. What's your take on what happened with the A's? And are they even going to be playing in Oakland in the next 3 years?
Dave, it's so maddening and hurtful for so many people
Yeah.
who worked in the organization under the Haas's. I was lucky enough to be there for 14 years. You talked about World Series, great players, massive fan base. And when I see what's happened now, there's a few points that people seem to forget.
Okay.
Number one, any business, and you guys analyze a lot of businesses, you have a lot of interactions. Teamwork, leadership, and trust. If you have teamwork, leadership, and trust in any undertaking, you can usually be successful. If you look at the current circumstance in Oakland, and we'll work backwards.
Okay.
Teamwork, nope, I don't think so.
Not happening.
And the entities are elected officials, the baseball commissioner, and the other 29 owners. And John Fisher, who, when I bring this up, people go, that's not possible. John Fisher has owned the team for 17 years.
I saw that the other day and rubbed my eyes and did a double take.
17 years, and this sounds made up. He has never once spoke publicly about why he owns the team. He's never even been on the ADC Partners podcast.
Despite multiple outreaches.
I mean, it sounds comical, but it's true. Now he's had spokesperson over time, Lou Wolf, and now President Dave Kaval. But the level of non-involvement between the elected officials, John Fisher, and Major League Baseball is maddening.
I got to say, and I'm going to break in for 1 second here. Baseball is kind of famous for having some outrageous owners. And the one that pops right into mind is kind of the Marge Schott thing, right? And for people who are not familiar with Marge Schott, former owner, I mean, you, first of all, get to Wikipedia right away and look up Marge Schott, right? Because
her dog Shotzi.
Yeah, her dog Shotzi used to go and relieve himself on the baseball field and all this kind of stuff. Really a challenging owner. Where does John Fisher fall in that spectrum of ownership? I mean,
before I answer that question, when we played Cincinnati in the World Series, and that was our worst loss, and even Tony La Russa, who never announces failure, even he said that was a massive failure of the organization. You know, we lost to the Dodgers, then we beat the Giants and had an earthquake, and then we lost to Cincinnati, and we were far and away the better team, but we lost. But it showed me early on that you never want an owner to address a fan base. So they called Marge Schott out. Marge Schott out. She's at home plate with Shotzi. And this is a time when we were engaged in hostilities in the Middle East. And she might have had a cocktail before.
I can't imagine.
She was hoping for the best for all of our troops in the Far East. She actually said that. All of our troops in the Far East.
Maybe she had a cocktail,
Yeah.
but knowing what I know about Marge Schott, maybe not.
Anyway, back to ownership. Where does John Fisher stand in the pantheon of ownerships? We wouldn't know because he doesn't talk. You really don't hear much from any other owners. The Giants really don't talk. And at one time, because of his father, Don, the founder of the Gap, solid businessman, great corporate citizen of San Francisco, they owned a piece of the Giants. And John said, well, if we own a piece of the Giants, why don't we own all of a team across the bay? And I don't know that John has any significant involvement in Oakland other than the team. So the strangeness in this is not to know what the man's strategy is. Now, clearly, he's trying to create a horse race between Vegas and Oakland. Well, Oakland doesn't have any horses.
Right.
There's no money there. And when the A's came out months ago with their $12 billion new urban ballpark city, and I went, that was $12 billion.
I'm checking my couch cushions.
What are you talking about?
No.
Even Mission Bay now, which is a miracle. We'll talk about that. Is that worth $12 billion? And how long it's taken for that to become the miracle that it is today?
Well, I think it's, when you look at it in the context, what was the SoFi Stadium down in LA? I think people started
5.5 billion.
And people were kind of, oh my stars and garters about, the cost associated with ending up building that stadium, and you're talking more than 2x.
And so here you have, I mean, let's get to the point. The A's are playing at the Oakland Coliseum, and the A's will open the season next year at the Oakland Coliseum, in my humble opinion, and the year after that. Now, they got a positive vote from BCDC, who said, okay, you could build a ballpark on this 56-acre parking lot at Howard Terminal. Now, there's other votes to come, and there's at least 3 significant lawsuits pointed against them, which have some sort of ticking clock of 270 days. So that's next year. Rob Manfred, the commissioner, said, you could move from Oakland if you want. Well, if you had your deal done in Vegas, which they don't have, why aren't they going to Vegas? Why? Because the temperature at game time today is 118 degrees, but it only feels like 122. You'd have to build a convertible dome stadium for a measly $1.6 billion. Who's paying for that?
A veritable deal compared to what they want to do in Oakland.
So there's lots of talking.
But the ball's not moving.
Yeah, when I see heavy equipment digging up a parking lot in Howard Terminal, okay. So lots of talk, lots of negotiation, but until John Fisher, who has said multiple times this is going to be 100% privately financed. Private, I think, means private. Public means public.
I don't know. I mean, they both begin with P. I get confused.
So it is gut-wrenching because 78 million people have come through the turnstiles to see the Oakland A's play at the Coliseum. And I have this wonderful picture of a complete sellout on a Wednesday day game. Right. 48,000 people. And I went a few weeks ago, and I literally, Dave, counted 2,108 people.
Yeah, you had your own section.
They announced 5,300. This is a self-inflicted mess that could be solved in 15 minutes if they looked at the Coliseum and said, this could be an East Bay example of China Basin or Mission Bay. The transportation hub is there. You don't have any of the environmental concerns. And that part of Oakland could be a shining light, just like Emeryville 10, 15 years ago. You looked at Emeryville and went, Emeryville?
You tried to speed up as you went through.
And look at it now.
Yeah, it's a destination. All right, well, so that's one Bay Area.
I'm not emotional about this.
Not at all.
Don't.
No, I love the calm, measured tone throughout the entire thing. Okay, so from one challenging Bay Area sports property to the next one, the former Pac-12, which is now again the Pac-10, which could be, if depending on which news report you hear, could soon be the Pac-6 or the Pac-4. What the hell happened to the Conference of Champions?
Here's the area that I don't understand. USC is a private institution.
Correct.
But UCLA is a public institution.
There's that public-private thing again.
Now, but let's look at the public institution. The commissioner of the Pac-12, the new commissioner, said, I didn't know anything about this. It was a deep, dark secret to other athletic directors, and it was a deep, dark secret to the governor. But wait a second, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. How does a public institution of California just decide, hey, don't tell anybody, we're going for the green?
Yeah, keep it on the DL.
Don't worry, but don't tell John Wooden, don't tell the Bruins, we're going.
I know the governor has come out and said, hey, we're going to make, he said something along the lines of, we're going to make UCLA tell us why they're moving. And do we I think we're all pretty clear on why they're making the move. The athletic department was 60, 70 million. I don't know the exact number, but tens of millions of dollars in the financial hole, which they literally solved by making this one move. So what do they really need to tell us?
In the scope of items that you and I talked about before, we've talked about it today. I've always said the color of the fluid that flows through the veins of sports, especially business of sports, is green.
Sure.
Now, let's stay in college for a bit. Let's look at conference jumping. Mm-hmm. Let's look at NIL, name, image, and likeness, which people are still trying to figure out. How does that work? Does the money get aggregated? How many athletes in a college athletic program are actually going to make anything? Do they understand that it's taxable? So if they look at 40,000 and they spend 50 and then they're 30 in the hole and their knee pops out, oops, that doesn't work out great.
And then there's the idea of collectives. It's a mess.
Yeah. So the latest view that I have is, sound mind, sound body, which is now morphed to student athlete.
Yeah.
Which part of that is oxymoronic in many instances.
Right.
And when you drill down, Dave, to amateur sports, the best ninth grader is talking about an NIL deal, or, maybe I'll skip college and go directly to the G League or play in Europe because I'm great. So where did play for fun go for young athletes? And you and I have been lucky enough to go through this with our children as they grew up and grown up, and I'm now dealing with grandchildren and want them
I'm not there yet.
Play for fun is sort of over.
Yeah.
Now it's play seriously. What travel team you're on? Quit your high school team so you can play on the travel team. And this morphs to what we see with USC and UCLA and others to come, where the balance is totally screwed in terms of why are you going to school and what are the schools doing?
I was gratified to see Major League Baseball Player Association Chief Tony Clark come out and say the youth travel baseball is a disaster and it's fundamentally broken. We cannot ask families to spend 5 figures a year carting their kids around to garden spots like Modesto in the middle of the summer and play.
Oh boy, I went through it. you know something about twins. I know something about twins. When they wanted to separate my daughters, who were pretty good soccer players and basketball players, said, why don't you play on two teams? And I go, why don't you write me a check for $25,000? Are you
Why,
nuts? I
why
can only
don't you do the
do
math?
so many unnamed Applebee's or Motel 6s. Oh, we're going to Sacramento. It's 104. What a wonderful
When the
opportunity.
Olive Garden represents a great night out, you know that you've gone down a dark,
And
dark
nothing
path.
against them. They're
Nothing
wonderful.
against the
They're
good folks from the
terrific.
garden.
But this sort of ratcheting, pushing down to competitive levels where play for fun is disappearing.
So I'm also interested in your perspective, someone who's been in the big chair and have everybody looking at you. I mean, it wasn't, I mean, getting back to the college thing in the Pac 12/10/6, you know, it wasn't that long ago that Larry Scott was a visionary for what he did with the conference, and now he's clearly not, right. He's getting a bit excoriated for not being able to stay on
You're a
top.
visionary when the money at that time and the deals seem holy mackerel. What a
Wow.
deal maker. Look at what ADC did
Yeah.
with this client. You know, Dolish sold the naming rights to FedEx in Memphis for a good chunk of change. But you look at dollars and cents, back to green. Here's a few numbers that still boggle my mind. The Haas family bought the Oakland A's in late 1980 for $11 million in change. There are second basemen in Major League Baseball now whose names I don't know that are making more than $11 million. The DeBartolo family bought the 49ers from the Morabito family for, I think, $18 million. Franklin Muley bought the Warriors for $18 million. And today, you know, Joe Lacob's running around like, yeah, we're worth $5.2 billion.
$5-6 billion. It's become an
So,
entirely
you know,
different animal.
and you look at it, and back to our point of USC and UCLA, where for years their venues would be chock full of paying fans, parking, bratwurst, beer, soda. Now,
I think they just released the prices that it takes a family of four to go to a Major
and
League
there's
Baseball
fewer
game.
and fewer people there, and the remainder, I mean, Stanford, Cal, Oregon, you and I traded messages. The athletic footwear business in the United States last year accounted for $40 billion of revenue. Now, there's some swooshes and there's some Under Armours and there's some
Yeah, yeah.
other companies in there. A lot of that is made through participant athletes, deals with schools. And what is Phil Knight thinking? He's underwritten massive positive programs at Oregon, his school, and at Stanford, where he went to B school. How is he viewing this see you later by USC and UCLA? Because that's damaged the conference significantly. And Mr. Klaviakov, like, oh, what a wonderful new job this is.
Do you have advice for him? I mean, if you bumped into him on the street and thought about it from your perspective of having been in just about every major professional league I can think of and being in the big chair, do you look at him and say, "I'm going to buy you a cup of coffee because I want to tell you this"?
Well, you never want to pontificate because you don't know all the details, but I believe that with all of this movement, with the massive amounts of capital that are available, I mean, just at Cal Berkeley, you look at people who, men and women who have gone on to be leaders in businesses, not just in this country, but all over the world, Stanford, Oregon, Washington. I would bring a task force together in non-secretive mode and say, okay, here's the circumstance. What are we going to do about it?
Right.
How proactive can we be? How agile and nimble can we be? And more importantly, if you have people like Phil Knight, who I do think represents the quality of sound mind, sound body, why don't we go back to that? Why don't we look at schools and create our own, what I've talked about, SAC conference? And then go like, what's an SAC? A student athlete conference.
Right. Schools who would be committed to that.
Quality schools. And if you look at corporate funding, whether they're shoelanthropists, that's a word I just made up, or other millionaires and billionaires.
Hashtag it.
Yeah. Can't you go back to what school is all about?
It is going to be fascinating to watch how conferences unfold or infold. I think I just made up a word. Infold over the next couple of years, because I think
Or
like
fold,
a lot of,
or just fold.
yeah, or fold.
Where the money doesn't work. We look at, it's sort of like the business of restaurants, Dave. I wouldn't want to be in the restaurant business today, based upon what happened. And if I'm sitting there as the president of a university, the athletic director, the board of trustees, and incidentally, the board of trustees at UCLA and USC, this was all a secret, and they all said, hey, sounds great to me. Investigation.
Well, you nailed it. I mean, I think it's they looked at the challenges associated with the athletic department, and they just said we can turn this key and leave the Pac-12. I mean, I've always see it almost like a game of musical chairs, right? The first two chairs got taken by USC and UCLA, and now everybody else is looking around going, "Oh, son of a gun."
Yeah.
There's not that many chairs left, so we better grab the first one.
Final point on that one, tickets and associated income and demographics and kids growing up with their favorite college where their parents went.
Mm-hmm.
This is today's ticket.
Yeah, it really is.
This is it. So now it'll be the Big 16.
For those of who are just listening, Andy is holding up what looks like a slab of black plastic and gold.
Yeah, it was an Android phone. It's ancient. But that's how people are living their lives today.
Well, which is a good segue to talk about fan-controlled football, right? Because the device, the mobile phone, which to even call it a phone is sort of irrelevant. I don't even know anybody who really uses it as a telephone.
ESPer. It's an ESPer.
Right. So, it kind of plays an integral role in fan control football, which you're obviously deeply involved with. And fan control football just wrapped its second season, correct?
Correct.
What are some of the biggest learnings? How are you seeing fans engage with it? What are going to be the next steps for the fan controlled football league?
Yeah. Well, I was approached by scary, smart young people, right? You have some experience, you and Andy, like you have a lot of.
No one smart approaches me. They're smart. Okay. They know better.
and they go, well, what about this? And how about that algorithm? And, can you do this? And tell me about, cyber world, and let's talk crypto, and like, whoa, settle down.
Yeah.
So when those
are made up words.
Yeah. When these guys first came to me, it was like, hey, you were involved in TBT, the basketball tournament, wonderful tournament in year 9. I was watching last night from the Rucker Park.
World famous Rucker.
Oh, it was just magnificent. Anyway, I like to see what's out there in the windshield, not the rear view mirror. Mm-hmm. And what immediately grabbed me was, we're going to take the fans in behind the curtain, because that's where everybody wants to be. And I said, tell me more. And they said, well, we have some scary smart people who figured out latency, meaning not late. We can make calls in 20 seconds from around the world. We pick 4 plays. Fans can vote on the 4 plays, immediately goes to the quarterback. We will ultimately set the stage for gaming in the future, legalized gaming, and you don't have to pay anything. And I went, okay, and how are we going to do this? In what sport? And they said, we're going to do it in indoor football, arena football, because it is easy to sort of pick plays and prognosticate. It's in an arena.
So controlled environment.
Holy mackerel. So 5 years ago, the founders bought a team in the IFL, the Indoor Football League, the Iowa Barnstormers, right? Yeah. Where Kurt Warner's magnificent story was told. And the fans voted on the city. It happened to be Salt Lake, on the name, the Screaming Eagles, based upon World War II great heroic pilots who flew B-17s. You know something about this. And it worked. So yeah. Pre-COVID, people actually came to the arena. but people from all over the world were calling plays.
So was this fan controlled football versus other arena control, just
Yes,
arena
and
football
they let
teams?
us
Yeah.
play. They let us play with sort of our
Method.
protocols,
Yeah.
and it worked. And then the founders said, well, maybe we should buy the rest of the league. And of course, when you have 9 other owners, that's going to take a while, be complicated. And it's like, all right, let's pop up our own league. Then COVID hit. And we were the beneficiaries of COVID because that was non-spectators at sporting events. We didn't need anybody to come to our games.
Yeah, you could do it all remotely.
They had it on their laptops, on their pads, on their phones. And so we played in an arena, the Infinite Energy Center in Atlanta. It started to attract people from the entertainment business. I mean, we have Joe Montana as one of our advisors.
I think Joe Namath is up to other stuff.
And Marshawn Lynch, and I know you're a big fan of Quavo, the rapper, and Johnny Manziel played, and T.O.
played.
And people started to go, holy mackerel! And there's so many great athletes in every sport.
Yep.
That might not be starters on a big team. And so that gave us the opportunity to have the money that came in from investors who went, oh, you're an immersive sport. You're clearly an immersive sport.
Really, yeah.
The company is, fan-controlled sports and entertainment. And I just keep talking about us as an immersive sport. The second season went extremely well. We had spectators at our arena that we built. It's sort of our own FCF dome called Pullman Yards, where they used to make Pullman rail cars.
Oh, cool.
Going back to what we talked about a while ago. And we're going to experiment with 3-on-3 basketball coming up in a few months. And yours truly is secretly leading a group that will present fan-controlled baseball in 2023, because baseball is the perfect kind of sport. And just imagine being able to tell the pitcher what to throw.
This is going to be your next pitch. What happens when he shakes off 30,000 people? They're going to start throwing things at him.
Well, I can't release that information now. We have a special mechanical button.
Does the mound just open up?
But if for the fans, seriously, for the fans that watched the All-Star game the other night, it was sort of a Cirque du Soleil. I mean, baseball finally took some chances, and they had pitchers talking to the announcers and the umpires. You could hear their calls. It humanized the game, which is losing its demographic back to where we started with the Oakland A's.
I had an opportunity to do a podcast not that long ago with the great Jason Pearl of the San Francisco Giants, who's been there. I think he's celebrating its 30th year.
One of the great loyalty organizations in all of sport.
But he talked about baseball not always being first out of the gate with new ideas and concepts, right? He said, we were talking about in the context of jersey patches. And he said, but you know what? In second and third, we're doing a better job of being more aggressive about trying new things, to having the media opportunities about talking to the pitcher in the middle of the innings and things like that. And
that's Major League Baseball, like many other sports. If you look at COVID, the NFL just went, we're the NFL. COVID? Yeah. Just get out of the way.
Whatever.
I mean, literally, we don't care. The other sports were significantly affected, and baseball is like turning around an aircraft carrier in a bathtub because of ownership, because of players association, because of history. In fan-controlled sports and entertainment, in baseball, are we going to play 4-hour games? No, we're going to have time. And the other night, I really wish the game would have been, because they were going to do home run derby.
Mm-hmm.
That's how our games will be decided if they're tied. And here's a rule or two.
That is a great idea.
You're sitting there in the stadium, right? And we're going to have a stadium that's going to have some flexibility, even to the point of, hey, there's no home runs hit. Let's move the walls in 15 feet, which
right.
hydraulic walls.
Everybody loves the long ball.
So it's a foul ball, and it's a foul ball from the home team. All right. If you catch it, you get free swag, and your player gets, let's say, hypothetically, 2 more swings.
Okay.
If you catch a foul ball from the opposing team, the batter's out.
Oh,
Batter's out.
yeah. I mean, you're talking about people going crazy for foul balls. I mean,
well, you look at foul balls, the video of the father holding his 4-month-old baby and a beer in one hand and catching it, like, oh, that's a really good idea.
all right. So baseball in 2023 is sort
We'll
of
have fun. We'll
yeah.
create our own field of dreams and schemes.
I want to talk about the other piece that we were discussing the other day about LOL lost a logo and, what's the next move. So this is the book that you've recently published about finding a job in sports.
Here it is. It's real. And
it is a real book.
And
it's printed on actual paper.
And I didn't have to pay for it.
They just sent it to you.
How about that?
That is not so bad.
It's got words and stuff in it.
Those pages aren't even blank.
Wow. And it's part of, I got it. It's part of 3 books that I've written now.
Uh-huh.
There's another one. This I'm very proud of, with a bunch of colleagues from Ohio University. And it talks about what we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think's changed for people who are trying to get a job in sports or move up in sports?
Yeah.
Has the skill set changed appreciably in the last 20, 30 years? Or do some of the same, when you're having the conversations, all the people that you had to write the book,
yeah,
do the same themes keep presenting themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll just relate a story. My son, he is in the sports business. He recently walked away from his job of 12 years with the mega successful Portland
Timbers
and Thorns to enjoy his life for a while before the next chapter. And he worked up in Sacramento with our good friend Alan Ledford, with introducing the River Cats to the marketplace, massively successful. And my daughters were in college on the East Coast. And I said, ladies, your mother and I are spending a fair chunk of change sending you to this effete institution. One was a lit major, great future in that. And the other was
for book writing.
Yeah, no, well, she teaches at Stanford, so
she's doing fine.
And the other one, was a business major, and the identical twins, but one had a bigger mouth than the other. So the unnamed twin, Karen, said,
who just got named.
Well, Dad, let me see if I got this correct. You've had a great career. We've been able to run around the offices of the Oakland Coliseum playing, tag and stuff. Our brother at that time, he's working in minor league baseball. That proves, Dad, that any moron could succeed in this business. And she really said that.
Thanks, honey.
I went, okay, you got it. You got it. So, yes, we now have a massive influx of numbers in all sports, right? You've covered it in many of your podcasts, analytics, metrics. I absolutely appreciate the digital delivery of sport. However, we talked about it before. If you don't have heart and soul for the business, you've been in it, you can't fake a 12-game homestand in baseball if you're working.
Right.
You can't fake 15 seasons working for a team. And you can't fake going 9-73 with the Philadelphia 76ers in the first job that I ever had. So what I tell young people, and I love to mentor, and I'll talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere about a job, because I think we all are brothers and sisters in this crazy business of sports in any realm from A to Z. Run to chaos and disaster. Go to where things are falling apart and not working well. How many resumes did the Golden State Warriors get on the Monday after they won the championship?
1.7 billion.
And how many resumes did whoever had the worst record in the NBA
3
this year get? None. or the Detroit Lions last year. That's where I want to go. That's what I tell young people. And even though we have so much more sophistication in today's world, you still have to generate money. Where did this conversation start today? With money.
Yeah. It's the theme that's been running through this whole thing.
You can crypto this, you can disassemble that, you can stream, you can do anything. But if you can't sell, in no matter how you're selling it, it used to be little pieces of cardboard, right? Tickets.
LBCs.
Now it's little pieces of carbon that go into these digital devices. So be a seller. And when I'm speaking to people, and you've done this too, and Andy, and you mention sales, and they go, ooh.
Yeah. Everybody leans back a little bit.
Sales.
Grit their teeth.
Well, how many people are going to be the general manager? One. How many people are going to be in the sales staff? 60, 40, 20. I'm not a numbers guy, but I'll take 60 over one.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you. I push back against the idea of people, when people start to go lean back in their chairs a little bit about, sales, I don't want to do that. That's so tough. I mean, that's all people do all day long anyway, is sell, whether it's an idea, a concept, yourself to someone else, whether you're trying to get a job, it's all sales.
That's the subliminal reason that I throw sales in there.
Yeah.
Because I want you to sell me on the quality that you have, young person. And if you can't sell yourself,
then how are you going to do it?
Move on the ladder of moving up in a team, then you're going to have a problem short of a sperm cell meeting an egg and you wake up and you own a team.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah. The other one you brought up earlier, and I want to make sure to emphasize this, is that you can't fake a 12-game homestand. Boy, the word authenticity gets thrown out a lot in this business, both from brands trying to be authentic and reaching fans, and the teams themselves trying to be authentic and how they market themselves and things like that. But it really does boil down to that idea that you have to be your authentic, true self in these kinds of things, because people pick up on the falsity.
Yeah, I mean, let's say we're in the restaurant business.
You really seem to want to get into the restaurant business. Second reference.
Tough business to be in, but we're in the restaurant business, and our restaurant is called the Oakland Coliseum, and our menu is Oakland A's baseball, Major League Baseball.
Right.
Hi, our restaurant sucks. We've got feral cats and possums not on the menu. You can't eat them. We're charging you more for parking than a 10 ticket package. And we just got rid of 7 of our best chefs who were really well known because we couldn't afford them. And we really don't want you to come to our restaurant, and we don't know when we're open, and you're going to have a terrible experience. Why don't you come in? We're having an oyster special. Like, no, you've got to sell the positives.
I don't think I'm ever going to be hungry again after that discussion.
Not everybody's going to win a championship, but
right.
If you have a restaurant and you're not doing absolutely the best job in a competitive nature, especially in the Bay Area,
where it's so competitive,
you've got championship teams. I was watching Steph Curry last night at the ESPYs, and he nailed it.
Yep.
It was absolutely terrific.
Yep.
Those players come along once every 2 or 3 decades, and we've had a ton of them in the Bay Area.
Yep.
And so the self-inflicted circumstance of the A's is a simple business proposition back to the individual. You want to go someplace where you could make a difference and where you have an organization that wants to turn things around, which you see in all manner of businesses that might be lagging, but they have new ownership, and boom, they come back with a vengeance.
Okay. So, well, thanks for going into that. And we're getting ready to wrap up here, but there's one more topic that I need to hear.
Wrap, that sounds very show businessy at ADC Partners.
It's kind of how we walk around here,
Yeah,
Mr. Dulwich. We're getting ready to wrap.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you one last little piece of buzz to be able to put out to the market. I have to get your opinion on the new golf tour, and I'm not naming it because first and foremost, I'm not exactly sure how it references itself. Is it the
The
LIV?
Roman number
Is it
54. If you
54?
asked that as a trivia question, most people, we're not going to mention the name,
All
right?
right, all right.
But most people would go, I don't, it would either be the first name an actress, last name Tyler,
Okay.
or others, and they'd go 54.
The
What
54 tour?
what
Is it
is that?
live? Is
Do
it
you know what
live?
it stands for, the 54?
I have no idea. It's other than a studio in New York.
A regular tour event plays 72 holes.
Ah, got it.
This
54.
tour plays 54 holes.
Got it. All right.
54 holes.
Shorter. All right. So finally,
And-
all right. Somebody who can explain this to me. Thank you. All right. So that's not the. They are literally chucking money at people to join this tour, right? And to pretty good effect right now, right? You have a number of players. I mean, what Cameron Smith, the guy who just won the British Open, he won $2.5 million for the British Open. And he looks like he's going to cash a check for $90 million to go over to the new
Yeah,
tour.
remember when we were talking about, the Haas family purchasing the team de Bartolo? Like, that guy won $2.5 million for playing golf for 4 days.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. That's a tip. He just got $90 million to play only 54 holes.
All right. So I'm asking you to sit in yet another seat. You're the commissioner of the PGA Tour. Are you worried? What's your position on all this, and how are you treating it?
Absolutely. Back to our friends at the Pac-12. What kind of rules and regulations? You're off the tour. You can't play in the majors. I'm very concerned because even quality players who are speaking against that other 54-hole tour, you're going to go where the money is eventually.
Right.
Because so many players are struggling, and we don't even hear about players that we don't know that are going to the tour. So I would want, if I'm that other tour, I would want some portion of that money going to junior golf programs. So I can, around the world in maybe underserved places, if I'm getting 90 large, what's $3 or $4 million to, go to Australia, right? Where the champion, is from.
Well, I mean, clearly it's been talked about at length that this new tour is the Saudi government's method or way to try to rehabilitate what has become a pretty negative image on the global stage, and golf is one of the tools with which they're doing it. So what you're talking about,
it's a global sport, and you have to watch out for other global sports. Let's look at China, 300 to 400 million basketball fans. I don't want to give Adam Silver agita, but if China decided, and there's a Chinese Basketball Association, I'm pretty sure, but their future president, Yao Ming, who will be the tallest president in the history of presidents.
I would say so.
What if China just said, you know what? Hey, LeBron, you're making a measly 250 million. I give you $750 million.
A straight up billion to come over and play.
Yeah, because the Lakers aren't any good. Well, buy the whole damn team.
Right.
And bring them over. So there's such incredible wealth creation in the world. And I guess the only positive, Dave, is it seems that people are looking to use sports as a way to sell a bad political image, turn around something that, happened in their history. And I would say this as we get, to the red zone or whatever you call it on ADC Partners, sports literally is the last town square left in our society. And even though we've talked about many ills over the last hour, the positives still outweigh the ills by a ton.
Right.
And that is why people love it so much at all different kinds of demographics, all ages. We talked about the Rucker tournament and TBT and fan control this and the NFL. There's a crowded landscape. Pickleball, which is taking over the United States. People still love to be engaged. And it's one of the last places that the red and blue team can actually coexist.
Andy Dolich, legend in the sports industry. Thanks so much for spending time with us today. I think I got another like 6 topics we can talk
Oh,
about.
we'll
We'll have to
come
do
back in a
volume
few
2.
months. And remember, with all the stuff that ADC might not have got to, life in the front office, LIFO, is, and Dave, we'll have to have you and Andy on if we haven't had you on already, but it's Fred Claire, who basically was with the Dodgers forever and still is. My good friend Pat Gallagher, another incredible, he's not a legend, he's a leprechaun of sports. And
He's a fine practitioner.
Young Jake Hirschman, an Ohio University colleague. And we talk about the same kind of issues. And for all those young people out there that might be listening, I would say with great pride, I'm your poster child. If I could have had, and I'm having, the career that I've had, in the words of my daughter, Karen, so can you. So be well, run to chaos and disaster, and listen to ADC Partners as much as you can.
So stop listening to this podcast. Get over to Life in the Front Office, where you can hear more of Andy Dolich, Pat Gallagher, Fred Claire. It's a great one. It's on my subscribe list. You should definitely make it a part of yours. But for this particular version of One-on-One with ADC Partners, thank you, Mr. Andy Dolich, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks for listening to this ADC Partners podcast. For more information about ADC Partners, please visit our website at adcpartners.com.